Okay, so let us start our Dhamma talk in this morning. So the topic for the Dhamma talk is 4 foundations of mindfulness. In order for us to develop this insight and develop this ability to let go, the Buddha has recommended us to establish or base our awareness, our mindfulness in 4 places, 4 areas. So these 4 areas is called 4 foundations of mindfulness. As long as we maintain our attention in these 4 areas, and we will be able to continue to develop our insight, our wisdom, and we will continue to develop our ability to let go and be free. So these 4 areas are body, feelings, or let's say sensations, and the mind itself, and then mental objects or other objects that come into our mind. So these are called 4 foundations of mindfulness. And so in our meditation practice, particularly during Vipassana, we are actually doing it. We use our body as a foundation, as a base to keep our mindfulness on, and then we use sensations, feelings that you did just now as a base for our mindfulness, and then we can also use our mind itself as a foundation of our mindfulness, place our mindfulness on, and then we can also use different mental objects. Means that what is occurring in the mind. It could be thoughts, emotions, wholesome ones and even unwholesome ones. Both can be used as a platform, as a foundation to keep our attention on. And then focusing our attention on these 4 things, the body, feelings, mind. The mind means actually general status of the mind. You simply notice whether mind is agitated mind or a calm mind. Is a lustful mind or dispassionate mind? Is mind with hatred or mind with not hatred or loving kindness? Doesn't matter. Whatever the state, we simply use the general nature of the mind. And then mental objects. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That means specific mental qualities that may arise in our mind. Could be, one of the hindrances, or could be one of the, wholesome state, one of the Brahma Viharas. Doesn't matter, whatever these, the contents of the mind. So the body, feelings, the general status of the mind, and the contents of the mind, specific states that we experience from time to time. It's same as observing the mind, but when we observe the mind, we usually simply notice the general state of the mind, peaceful or calm, or and then when we what we call dhammas, dhammanupassana, there we pay attention to the specific contents of the objects of the mind. So these are the 4 areas. But actually, if you close directly on these 4 foundations, they are actually the different way of presenting the 5 aggregates. Because we learned yesterday, the 5 aggregate is what we are made of, and that is what is happening here. So these 5 processes continuously evolving, changing, shifting, and in any persons, although we can conventionally call him or her as a person, but what is really there are these 5 processes working, constantly changing. So we all are 5 processes, right? So the Vipassana technique is to notice these 5 processes and directly experience that each process is in a constant flow. Each process is not permanent, not static, not solid. Each process is changing, and understand that impermanence, and then understand that how we use these 5 processes to create this idea of I, And once you realize it, we can loosen our attachment and our notion of self and I and can be a little free. So the 4 foundations of mindfulness, we have 4. And 5 aggregates, we have 5. But when Buddha talked about 4 foundations of mindfulness, he said that turn attention inward and try to observe what is happening here, then we will easily see these 4, which includes these 5 aggregates. So do you remember the 5 aggregates? What is number 1? Yeah, physical, let's say physical form, with regard to us. Physical form. The second one? Yeah, feelings. But just remember, it's a felt quality. Feelings doesn't mean the emotions here, the sensations. Yeah. The third one, perceptions, which means our cognitive process, our memories, our concepts, images that we have. Yeah. The fourth one, yeah, mental formations. The term is sankhara. This has been translated in many ways because sankhara is such a profound term. It can be translated. It has been translated in many ways. Mental formations is one translation. Volitional formations, another translation. Fabrications is another translation. Conditionings, another translation. But they refer to the same thing. Anything that we construct, we form, Bhante Purna said that we edit, re-edit and edit and re-edit. So mental formations, which means all our habits, our patterns of behavior, what you call our character, any tendencies, actually is mainly tendencies of our reaction. So with perception, we interpret anything that comes to us, and it is the sankhara that will decide how we're going to react to it, or the tendencies that we have to react to certain situations in different ways. So the reaction comes from sankhara. Once you react, you construct more sankhara. So we keep editing, but the initial urge to react in a particular way comes from the sankhara, and once you react, you strengthen it. If you don't react and observe, you will weaken it. So that's what we want to do in vipassana meditation. When you go through our sensations, the pleasant one, unpleasant one, we notice them. We try not to react, but to develop equanimity and simply observe them and just be with it, without trying to move, try to run away, try to wanting it more. What we are really doing is actually we are weakening the sankharas. We are weakening our unwholesome sankhara and gradually weakening them. So sankhara, let's call them mental formations. The fifth one is the consciousness. Now let us come to the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What we have the 4 foundations of mindfulness? Body, feelings, mind, mental objects. So right there, the first 2 is very clear, right? The rupa, the physical form, but when it comes to 4 foundations of mindfulness, Buddha used the term kaya, which means actually the body. Because in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, we turn our attention inward. The explanation of 5 aggregates is not only about the explanation about ourselves, but the explanation about all living beings. So rupa, physical form. But when you turn inward, in your own personal existence, and what you first notice, you will notice your rupa, your physical form, as kaya, as the body. But rupa is more than body. But when we observe inwardly, that is what you will catch. So kaya, the body, is equivalent or in line with rupa, physical form, in the aggregates. Then second one is feelings or sensation, vedana, is the same term. And then next one is chitta, which means mind, using the mind as a base, foundation. So chitta is here in the context of aggregate is the consciousness. And then we have dhamma, the last foundation, dhamma. Dhamma is even larger term than the sankhara. The Dhamma is the largest term that anything is Dhamma. There's nothing in this world we can call, we cannot be called. Dhamma means phenomena, anything in that case. But here, when you turn inward, you notice the mental objects as the Dhamma, the wholesome qualities and unwholesome qualities. So the sanya, the perceptions, and sankhara, the mental formation, both are mentioned here as Dhammas. So when we turn inward, when we observe ourselves, we are actually observing these five aggregates, but they appear to us at the beginning in four ways: as our physical body, as our sensations, as our mind, and then as mental objects. That is how we will notice them. So it's the same way, like observing the five aggregates within ourselves. And so when we notice, as long as we keep our attention in this way, Buddha said that this is the best way to keep our mind pure from any defilements. As long as we can maintain our attention in these four foundations, we can stay without being influenced by our own defilements, and also we are slowly removing our ignorance. The first one, when we pay attention to the body, there are a few ways that we can keep our mindfulness in the body. Each way is helping us to directly experience what we call the body. Usually, whenever you think about yourself, when you think about your body or any other's body, we have an image of our body, right? And that is how we even recognize ourselves, right? And if someone shows you a photo, if you are in that photo, and that's the one that you first see, and you can recognize, oh, this is me there, right? And even when you close your eyes and think about yourself, our image and our body is the one that comes to us. So we have an image of our body. This is how my body looks like. This is how my body. So we have an image. But that image that we have constructed of our body is not there. It's not here. It's only an image. But we think that that image is this. But with the contemplation of the body in the four foundations of mindfulness, is helping us to really directly observe what is here, what is existing here, what is happening here. And then when you closely look at that, and you'll be able to recognize that our image of our body that we use as the proof of our eye, that image is not real. You will be able to dismantle that image that we carry in our mind about our body. And that will also later will help us to transcend the image that we have constructed of others' bodies. Usually when we create an image of our body, that image we use that image as the object of desire. Either we like our body, and then we can also have images of other bodies. And usually body, the way we construct, the image that we construct on others' bodies, usually we construct as object of desire. So we think that the bodies, the other's body is something that I can indulge in, I can consume, I can use for my pleasure. That's how we usually construct the images of the body. And I mean, everyone, you can see how, in advertisements, anywhere, you use the human, image of the human body as an object of, desire, attraction, and something that we can consume, something that we can indulge. And we also have the similar kind of image of our own body. But Buddha is saying that this is very unrealistic. there are no such, bodies in reality. So the contemplation of the body is helping us to directly observe what is really happening, be naked, be honest, and really see what is really here, and then come to the reality, and then we will remove our wrong images that we have developed in our mind. As a result, no body is going to disturb us, no body can create lust or desire in us, and nobody can create any hatred in us, because we have come realize the truth. Just like, remember yesterday we talked about like a snake and a rope. When you deeply realize it's a rope, and it does not create any disturbance in us. So that's the kind of realization that the Buddha is guiding us to achieve. So the first one is to you maintain the mindfulness in the body, and then contemplate the real nature of the body, and then come to realize that. and then we can also use feelings and the mind itself, and also the mental objects. So in your chanting booklet, we have the sutta on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the short sutta, so page 8. Of course, we can study this sutta for weeks, but today we'll try to just be familiar with it, and you can actually bring this, booklet with you, and there are a lot of commentaries on this sutra, a lot of books written about this sutra, so you can unpack so many meanings in each term and this practice. But today, let us just be familiar with that. And here, the Buddha has given this teaching to a group of people who lived in the village or in the town called Kammasadhamma, in the country called Kuru. This is like a small country that was there in the Indian subcontinent at the time of the Buddha. And the Buddha said that in the third passage, the Blessed One said, "This is the direct path for the purification of beings, for overcoming of sorrow, lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of right method, for the realization of unbinding." Unbinding is another term for the Nibbana, the enlightenment. In other words, 4 frames of reference. So in this translation, Venerable Thanissaro has translated 4 foundations of mindfulness as 4 frames of reference. That is how he has translated that. But this is the same as 4 foundations of mindfulness. Instead of using foundations, he has used frames, and instead of mindfulness, he has used reference. But that's okay. And Buddha said that, so these are the benefits of maintaining our mindfulness on these 4 areas that will help us to purify. That is the direct path to purify all beings, to overcome sorrow, lamentation, and all the pains. So this is the direct path to enlightenment. So then the next passage says that there is a case where a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside great distress with reference to the world. He remains focused on feeling, mind, mental qualities in and of themselves, ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. This is the general attitude that we need to maintain with regard to our body, feelings, mind, and mental qualities. That is, remain focused on the body in and of itself, and be ardent and alert, mindful, and we are focusing on these areas with equanimity, which means putting aside greed and distress. So not really liking anything, not really resenting anything, but simply observing it. So that's how we can gradually, start to see the real things happening, and then can remove our misunderstandings, our our misconceptions, and directly experience the reality within ourselves. So there are a few ways that we can establish our mindfulness in our body. Actually, there are 6 ways how we can maintain our mindfulness of the body. One is the breath. So we have been doing it, using the breath as an anchor to stay in the body. So whenever we think about the body, rarely people think about the breath. But the breath is the most key function of the body, and it's the breath that actually energizes the body, adjusts the body. And without the breath, there'll be no body, right? So using the breath is actually observing the real function here, how the breath is adjusting and creating and energizing the body. So we all are familiar with that. So I'm not going to explain in detail. But here, in this passage, you can understand a little bit about different progression of breathing meditation. Different progression. Let us quickly read that. Under the body, you have number one. Okay. Let's even read that. Okay, number one. Can you all read with me? There is the case where a monk, having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree, to an empty building, sits down, folding his legs crosswise, holding his body erect, setting the mindfulness to the fore, always mindful, he breathes in, mindful, he breathes out. So the first passage, Buddha gives an explanation about how we can prepare ourselves for this meditation. So we have to go to wilderness, means actually some kind of place that is free from happenings, free from our household disturbances. Yes, brother?
It specifies cross legs.
No. Okay. No. Let me try to remember the Pali. Okay. Pallankang abhijitva ojunkayang panidai. Yeah. So there's a term called pallankang. Pallankang means actually the cross leg. Yeah. But I think Buddha is compassionate. So this will be the ideal. Yes. What is actually, I think, like during last retreat, I explained the reason why we want to maintain such a posture. Actually, here the key is ujung kayang panidhaya, keeping our upper body, we can call it straight or erect, keeping our upper body erect. We need to maintain the natural shape of our spine for the breathings to happen smoothly and for our mind to go to a complete state of peace and equipoise. We need to maintain the natural shape of the spine, the inward curve of our lower back and the middle curve and then upper curve. So in order to maintain the natural shape of the spine, we need to keep our legs in a particular way. With the position of the legs, the way we sit can influence how the shape of the spine. So the cross-legged position can help us do that, but we can also maintain the natural shape of the spine even in other ways too. So sometimes, because when you are sitting on a chair or somewhere, we do like this, right? We want to be comfortable. Instead of keeping the natural shape of the spine, which is maintained in 3 curves, we make it one nice C curve, just one curve. That's not helping. So the reason to keep the legs in a particular way to maintain the natural shape of the spine, which means to maintain the 3 curves. Okay, so let's read the breathing part so we can understand the progression of the breathing meditation. Let's read together. Breathing in long, he discerns, I am breathing in long. Or breathing out long, he discerns, I am breathing out long. Or breathing in short, he discerns, I am breathing in short. or breathing out short, he discerns, I'm breathing out short. Okay, let's stop there. So here this is like an initial first stage of breathing meditation. So here we can see that our role as a meditator's role is to discern the length of the breath. If it is long, the way it is happening at that moment, we discern that I'm breathing long. Doesn't mean that you purposely breathe long. You discern how the body is breathing now. How the body is the body breathing long or body breathing short. So our goal is to discern how the breath is happening. So here we can see that the way we approach the breath is we simply want to observe, not to intervene, but observe how this is happening. Sometimes it can be long, sometimes it can be short based on the body's needs in different times. But in order to, as a beginners, in order for us to start our breathing meditation as a way to bring our attention onto the breath, at the beginning, we can do some breathing exercise, or we can purposely, because initial breath is a very subtle object to pay attention to, right? It's very subtle. It's not something very obvious unless we develop our mindfulness. It's not very obvious, right? It's very subtle. So for the beginners, in order to catch the breath, you can take few long deep breaths to feel, okay, how it feels like to breathe, which part of the body are involved, and how it feels in the nostrils, in the chest. So you can take few deep breaths and try to feel it clearly, and then you can let go, and then let the body to breathe, and we discern it. So initially it's okay, you can manipulate your breath a little bit. And you can also do it when you feel sleepy, remember? But not too long, just to adjust. And then we let the breathing happen, we notice, we discern the length of the breath. That's the first stage. Let's go to the second. He trains himself, I will breathe insensitive to the entire body. He trains himself, I will breathe out sensitive to the entire body. Okay, that's the second stage. Of course, we can simply read it, but these stages takes time. The next stage is actually try to feel the breath throughout the body. Initially, we can only feel the breath in one part of the body, but more you pay close attention, you begin to see breath is not only one thing. Sometimes people, at the beginning, you feel the breath around your nostrils, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. But the breath is happening throughout the body, the whole internal breathing is happening there. So you enhance your attention to observe the whole, sometimes it's the whole body breath, the whole body breath, the whole process of the breathing, which involves the whole body, at least, most part of the body. So enhance your attention to feel how the entire body is breathing, how each cell is involved in this whole breathing. So we can, let's keep, the next one requires a lot of explanation, but let us read that because we have a limited time. Okay, sensitive to the body. Next stage, he trains himself, I will breathe in calming bodily fabrications. He trains himself, I will breathe out calming bodily fabrications. The calming, the bodily fabrication here means mainly the breath. There's another term for the breath because there can be other, like a digestion, many other processes happen in the body can be called bodily fabrication or sankhara, but the one key one is the breath. So the more we pay attention to the breath, you can see there's a whole calming down of the breath itself and also all the physical processes in the body itself. There's a big calming down. Of course, it's more like a parasympathetic nervous system. It's like settling and calming everything in the body, including the breath and any other processes in the body. So you can see the whole body is like not shutting down, but calming down. So you notice that. The next one. That's all, yeah. And then, of course, Buddha is giving a simile there. Yeah. Okay, that's the breath one. But I want to quickly go to the other part, just to help you that how we can pay attention to breath in a way that we can go beyond the image that we have constructed of our body. Let's go to next page, number 2. Furthermore, let's read together. Furthermore, when walking, the monk discerns I am walking. When standing, he discerns I am standing. When sitting, he discerns I am sitting. When lying down, he discerns I am lying down. Or however body is disposed, that is how he discerns. So during a retreat period, and the other way that we can maintain our mindfulness in the body is to pay attention to our posture. Let's say we are not sitting and meditating, and we are doing something else. So then we have four postures: walking, sitting, standing, and lying down. So maintaining our attention in all 4 postures is also another way that we keep attention to our keep mindfulness of the body. As long as we can maintain that, we are developing our insight, we are decreasing our defilements, and we close the opportunities for the defilements to arise. So that is why when you in a retreat, we ask you to be mindful even when you walk, when you stand, when you sit, even when you eat. So maintain that mindfulness, what's really happening, rather than jump into our imagination. So then we can be more with the reality. Let's go to the next one, number 3. When going forward and returning, he makes himself fully alert. When looking towards and looking away, when bending, extending his limbs, when carrying his outer cloak, his upper robe, his bowl, when eating, drinking, chewing, savoring, when urinating and defecating, when walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, talking, remaining silent, he makes himself fully alert. Oh, this is the full mindfulness. No matter whatever you do, you keep noticing, you keep mindful of the every movement, every activity that you are doing. So that requires very strong mindfulness, and we try to do it in these kind of retreat settings. And even when you are eating, we have learned how to eat mindfully. So when you do it, every activity when you do with this kind of sharp awareness and mindfulness, there's no moment, opportunity in our mind to fool ourselves from our concepts and from our images, from our ignorant beliefs, because we are really paying attention to what is really happening. So whatever you do, that's one other way. So in that case, we can see that no activity is excluded from our ability to be mindful. So of course, during meditation, we will be mindful of our breath and of our body. But if you practice this, so no matter what you do, you can still maintain your mindfulness. You'll be not able to maintain such a mindfulness in your daily life all the time. But you can make a decision to use certain periods of your day, from 7 to 8. I'm going to be mindful of everything I'm going to do. Even when you're putting your shoes on, when you're putting your clothes on, you can see here, right? When you carry your handbag, when you go to your vehicle, when you start the car, so in every activity you try to maintain that mindfulness, and maybe an hour, and see what is the result. How much freedom you can feel, how much more wisdom you have developed your own life, because during that time, our mind will not have unnecessary thoughts, our mind will not have unnecessary worries, so the mind becomes so light, and we feel so much of relaxation and peace afterward. But in a retreat setting, we try to do it all the time. Let's go to the next one that we are going to do in the afternoon, this meditation, number 4. Furthermore, just like as if a sack with opening at both ends were full of various kinds of grain, wheat, rice, mung beans, kidney beans, sesame seeds, husk rice, and a man with good eyesight pouring it out were to reflect, this is wheat, this is rice, these are mung beans, these are kidney beans, these are sesame seeds, this is husk rice. In the same way, a monk reflects on his very body, from the soles of his feet on up, from the crown of his head down, surrounded by skin, and full of various kinds of unclean things. In this body, there are head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, tendons, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, pleura, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, gorge, feces, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, skin oil, saliva, mucus, fluid in joints, urine. This is the real body. Not the body that we have in our mind. When you see other bodies, when you see advertisement, the body is an advertisement, do you see this? Right? So that is the image of the body. And that's the images that we carry, in our mind. When we see people, we think, we don't really see the actual thing, we see the image that we carry. So any aversion, any lust, or any desire is arising not because of the real body, because of the image that we created about the body. So what Buddha is guiding us, okay, break that wrong image, a false image, directly confront the actual body. And then we will be able to develop not the aversion or not the lust, but the equanimity, and accepting it with what it is and taking care of it, because we know it's so fragile. And think about all these items. There are 32 items here. And of course, even if you want, we can divide it furthermore. And so then, and take care of it, we realize that how fragile. If any one of these things is not working properly, everything will be collapsed. So you develop, the understanding of the fragility of the body. And you can take care of it, you can be grateful towards it, but then you will not use it as an object of desire. And you will have equanimous understanding. So we will do this meditation in the afternoon to go through this real body. So this is the real body. So I'm actually amazed, at the time of the Buddha, they had a pretty good understanding of the human body. Yeah. They will probably, and of course in the next item, the way to maintain our attention on the body is actually contemplate on the dead bodies, the gradual decomposition of the dead bodies. So I'm sure, the monks went to the dead bodies and they opened it and they were examining different parts of the body. And so they did experiments, they did, research and come up with this understanding. So this standard list of 32 parts of the body was very common. Let's read, I think, number 5 about 4 elements. We did it yesterday, so you understood it, so we can read it later. So we can read number 6. We can skip number 5, we can read number 6. Furthermore, as if he were to see a corpse cast away in a carnal ground, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days dead, bloated, livid, festering, he applies it to this very body. This body too is such nature, such future. It is unavoidable fate. Or again, if you were to see the corpse cast away in a carnal ground, picked at by crows, vultures, hawks, by dogs, hyenas, various other creatures, a skeleton smeared with flesh and blood, connected with tendons, fleshness, a skeleton smeared with blood connected with tendons, a skeleton without flesh or blood connected with tendons, bones detached from their tendons, scattered in all directions, and here a hand bone, there a foot bone, here a shin bone, there a thigh bone, here a hip bone, there a backbone, here a rib, there a breastbone, here a shoulder bone, there a neck bone, here a jawbone, there are a tooth, here's a skull, the bones whiten somewhat like the color of the shells piled up, more than a year old, decomposed into powder. He applies this to very body. This body too, such is its nature, such is its future, such is unavoidable fate. So, Buddha is here guiding us one way that we can observe the dead body, how they decompose gradually day by day, and really see this is what's going to happen to this body too. And this is the future of this body, to understand it. But I don't think that our future of this body will be like this, because many of us will be cremated. But anyway, to understand that that the body that we treasure so much, that we attach so much, is we are going to leave it behind one day, and it's all up to the others to do what they want to do. You have no control. Of course, you can write your last will, how to treat your body. But the body that we protect, we treasure, we defend so much, is going to be abandoned, and others can do what they like to do. So that's the future of this body. So you develop this understanding that this body, there is not, I cannot claim ownership to this body that alone. Even now, when we claim ownership, we cannot really fully control. But to deeply, confront this reality that we will leave it behind, and there's a natural process going to happen. When you cremate it, you kind of intervene it. But again, those bones, sometimes you keep in the temples, right? But it's still there's a decomposition is going to happen, and eventually nobody knows whose bones are they. Maybe some decades later, nobody knows, and becomes simply part of the nature. And right now we have separated this body, this skin, this bone, this teeth, even this nail. It's very special to us, right? Before you cut it, before you cut your nail, it's very precious, very important. After you cut it, do you keep it? Then it becomes something filthy, something not nice. But as long as it's attached to your body, it's so precious. Same with hair. Hair is so nice, you really like it, something really like and desire. The moment you see it on the floor, oh, it's disgusting, right? So it's so nice as long as attached to the body. But when it's removed from the body, we ourselves look at those things in a disguised manner, as disgusting. But the reality is that these things that we treat as separate from the rest of the world, like this nail, this skin, this bone, this hair, everything, we somehow separate it from the rest of the world and treat it as something special. But what we realize when we contemplate what's going to happen to the dead body is, actually, this body that we claim ownership is not really that different from the rest of the world. It's actually the part of the nature. We simply, claim ownership, but it's really the part of the nature, and it's going to, be part of the nature. And it is the division, the barrier that we create in our mind is a false barrier, and we use that barrier to feed our idea of ego and self and I. So what's going to happen when we contemplate on our body in that way? We will gradually remove those wrong perceptions, our wrong image of the body, and we will gradually overcome the barrier, the division that we have created with ourselves and the rest of the world. So that's what's going to happen. That is what is happening in Vipassana. Let's go to the feelings quickly, and there, let's read that one, B. And how does a monk remain focused on feelings in and of themselves? There's a case where a monk, when feeling a painful feeling, discerns, I'm feeling a painful feeling. When feeling a pleasant feeling, he discerns, I'm feeling a pleasant feeling. And feeling neither pleasant, nor painful feeling, he discerns, I'm feeling neither painful nor painful feeling. So that's what we have been doing. Like in our morning practice, we go through the body. So we can do it in other times too, but try to maintain our attention and observe it with equanimity. And then, of course, it further go into other kinds of feeling. There are not only physical feeling, there can also be feeling related to our mental states. So initially we can have 3 kinds of feelings, but we can further divide that feeling into other types. But anyway, they are simple sensations, and we maintain our attention on that. Let's quickly read the mind part, and we can later read the mental quality part. But let's read that one. See. And how does a monk remain focused on the mind in and of itself? There's a case where a monk, when the mind has passion, discerns that mind has passion. When mind is without passion, he discerns that mind is without passion. When mind has aversion, he discerns that the mind has aversion. When the mind is without aversion, he discerns the mind is without aversion. When mind has delusion, he discerns the mind has delusion. When the mind is without delusion, he discerns the mind is without delusion. Now, in this practice, you simply pay your attention and be mindful of whatever mind states, you simply discern. So if your mind is lustful, you're not going to be upset about it and worry about it and feel guilty about it. You simply discern, oh, okay, it is lustful, right? It is with passion right now. And if it is angry, you're not going to blame yourself. You're not going to react anyway. You simply discern, oh, okay, it is anger now. It is anger. This is how it feels like to be anger. So whatever state, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, doesn't matter. Here we don't try to make it wholesome. We try to develop the wisdom. So we simply notice it. So of course, while you're observing and noticing it, it will not grow, and eventually it will come to a purified state. But at the beginning, in this practice, our effort, our approach is not to get rid of it, is to discern it. So it's okay to have lustful mind, it's okay to have angry mind, as long as you can discern it. And you can observe it, because the moment you observe it, you somehow disconnect yourself from that functioning, and you simply observe, you understand deeply, this is the defilement, this is how it arises, this is how it stays. You develop the wisdom when it is in the mind, and eventually it disappears, but at the beginning we use it to develop the understanding of it. Because if you don't really confront and feel it, we will not know how exactly what is lust and what is anger, what is jealousy, or whatever the states. So it's okay to have them, and then we have to use them to observe it and discern it, exactly understand the real nature of it. So before you try to get rid of it, use it to observe and to understand it. And that is the practice here. Getting rid of will happen eventually. But as long as we are observing and noticing it, it will not damage anyone. You'll be really, really angry. And as long as you discern it, you realize, oh, anger is here. Oh, this is how it feels like to be angry. Oh, it's burning. It's uncomfortable. My throat is dry. I feel, tightness in my chest. You keep observing it. the whole, quality of the anger. So as long as you notice and listen, observing it, it is not hurting you, you are not hurting anyone. So it is safe to have anger as long as you have full awareness of it. And then once you understand it, once you understand the heaviness, the discomfort, then you will develop more wisdom not to have it again, or not to at least feed it again. But first we need to understand them. So that's the approach here. Yes?
What does it mean when it's written when the mind is without delusion?
Delusion.
What it is?
Yeah. In this case, brother, we can understand it as confusion. Yeah. Let's say even in our mind, sometimes we have glimpses of insight, like, aha, this is not really there, but I'm seeing it as if it is there. So then you become aware, okay, it is clear now. But sometimes we can, although we intellectually know it, but we can still, see it as if it is really there, or maybe we can have a confused mind, which is very difficult to discern. But we can understand it's confused now. I'm saying things wrongly. So I think it's difficult for us to know when our mind is diluted. To know that I'm diluted is difficult because mind is diluted. But our mindfulness can be developed to extent that sometimes when our mind is having wrong beliefs, and we can be aware that, this is how I feel and this is how I see it, but this is wrong. So you become aware of that diluted nature. At least you know that how you see it is wrong. Becoming aware of the confused state of the mind. When you have the right view, you will be able to recognize a delusion as delusion. Otherwise, we will not even see it as a delusion. We think that is my belief. It's the correct way I am saying. Because you have a right view before you start, then you can discern, although this is how I see it, but this is not right. Is the right view is guiding us to distinguish whether it's a delusion or not delusion. Yeah, let's read that part. Okay, the next passage. When the mind is constricted, he discerns the mind is constricted. When the mind is scattered, he discerns the mind is scattered. When the mind is enlarged, he discerns the mind is enlarged. When mind is not enlarged, he discerns the mind is not enlarged. When mind is surpassed, he discerns the mind is surpassed. When the mind is unsurpassed, he discerns the mind is unsurpassed. When the mind is concentrated, he discerns the mind is concentrated. When mind is not concentrated, he discerns the mind is not concentrated. When mind is released, he discerns the mind is released. When mind is not released, he discerns the mind is not released. So these are the different states of the mind is capable of achieving. And most of these states are the states that we will develop during our deep meditations. For example, constricted and not constricted. The mind can be constricted means that mind can be very narrow. Very narrow. When we have preoccupation, our mind is always thinking about some issue again and again. It is constricted. It cannot think about other things. It's so preoccupied, like an addiction. Keep on thinking about that, whatever that thing, So that means our mind is constricted. It doesn't have the space for other things to think. So that is constricted and it's scattered. That mind is moving from one to the other. That we experience most of the time. So we can discern even that. And enlarge here is something to be understood with Brahma Viharas. Enlarge means actually when we practice loving kindness and compassion or the Brahma Viharas, it says that our mind is like expanding, so to speak. We open our mind to include. We make our mind so open. So literally, we can say you are enlarging your mind. is maybe opposite to constricted. And surpass, this is related to deep meditation experiences, and we may not have it in normal mind. Surpass means that going beyond the sensual realm, means that we have this tendency of the mind to have some sensual pleasure, but when we achieve jhanic level of meditation tranquility, you have surpassed very need for any sensual pleasure. So you have surpassed. So you have that state. So surpass means going beyond the need for sensual pleasure, at least temporary in that state. So concentrated and not concentrated, that means a stilled mind and not a stilled mind. Release and unreleased is actually that you experience as a result of insight. For example, for liberated, enlightened person, the state of the mind is release. So, but we can also have temporary release as a result of some deep meditation inside. Sometimes we can feel that our mind is released. Nothing can bother it, and it's free. We can have such states for some time and can be again disturbed by other things. So all these different states of the mind. So we just simply use and we discern it. Okay, so we will study later the mental qualities, but I would like you to pay attention to the last paragraph, the third paragraph in that page. That is the refrain, that's the repetitive paragraph that occurs after every contemplation. So in this passage we find the basic attitude we need to maintain to the body, to the feelings, to the mind, to the mental objects. Let us read that. In this way, he remains focused internally on the mind in and of itself, and externally on the mind in and of itself, both internally and externally of the mind and itself. Or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to the mind, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to the mind, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the mind. Or his mindfulness that there is a mind is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance, and remains independent, unsustained by not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a monk remains focused on the mind in and of itself. Okay, so this is reoccurring again and again with regard to body, feelings, and mind and mental objects. So you remain focused internally on the body, the mind, and externally on the body and mind. That means that, of course, here the main attention is inward and observing directly what is happening here. But we also need to have awareness that whatever happening here is common with any other persons or beings out there. So when you understand the 32 parts of the body, for example, when you are directly observing and understanding it, and you are also developing the understanding that this is common externally too. This is internal what I'm experiencing, but what is happening externally is also not different. So whatever insight that you are developing within yourself, you are applying it to understand all others and rest of the world. So internally and externally. And then when we keep paying attention to our body, feelings, and we remain focused to the fact of impermanence. Here the impermanence is explained in a very interesting way. It says that phenomenon of origination and phenomenon of passing away. We can call it impermanence. But when you closely look at the impermanence, what you see is the constant flow, constant change. If you further penetrate the constant flow, you will see two stages, arising and passing away. So the arising and passing away is what is really happening. We can call it impermanence. But the reality, if for example a sensation, if you closely observe the sensation, you can notice the arising stage of that sensation and the passing away stage of that sensation. Any thought, arising stage of that thought, passing away of stage of that thought, either increasing and then decreasing. So anything in this world, although we call a thing, it's not really a thing, either it is in a state of arising or a state of passing away. So when we do this vipassana technique, whatever comes to the purview of our experience, we are observing and noticing it with equanimous mind, but we are also paying attention to the arising and passing away of that phenomena, which means to experience the impermanence. But the way you experience the impermanence is noticing this arising stage and the passing stage. So that's the two things happening. So everything in this world is either in the process of building up or in the process of collapsing, right? We are either as human beings, we are either growing up or growing old. In between, we can call there is a person, but actually, it's either in the process of growing up or the process of growing old. Right? This is either any flower, we can call it a flower, but there's no moment the flower exists as a flower, because it's either in the state of blooming or in the state of what do you call the other one? Withering. So it's either in a state of blooming or in a state of withering. In between, we can conventionally call this a flower, but there's no flower at any given point of time. It's our concept. Reality is in the process of blooming or process of withering. So observing that two stages is having the attention to the any phenomena that we experience, and maintaining that attention is how we contemplate. So it's actually observing the impermanence, but the way we can observe the impermanence is through arising and passing away. And then, his mindfulness that there is a mind is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance. So even when we use the body, feelings, mind and mental objects, we use it as an object of meditation, not because that body, that feeling is actually is existing there as a unit, but we maintain our mindfulness that there is a mind just to observe this. But in reality, there is also not such a thing called, like a permanent thing called mind, a permanent thing called body. So, but for us to first to catch and observe it, we need to come up with some conventional, some arbitrary, category. So therefore, we can observe. Okay, I'm going to observe the body, but in reality, it's not one single unit, but it's something that's always moving, changing. But in order for us to focus our attention, establish our mindfulness, we have to temporarily, at least, to have an idea that I'm going to focus on that. So the mindfulness that there is a body, there's a mind, is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance. We kind of fix, we kind of take that as an object just to develop this mindfulness, but not to take that body or the mind as an object of permanence. Simply as an object just to develop this awareness, and once we develop that, we know that it's even not that solid. So you have to maintain that kind of attitude also, when developing this meditation. And then and as a result, what's going to happen, he remains independent. Actually, here the independent, the Pali term is anisito, which means that when we live our life, we always lean to someone or something to live our life. We always leaning ourselves. We always attaching ourselves. That is how we live our life. We need something to lean on. At least we need a problem to live our life. Otherwise, we don't. So at least we attach. We lean again. We lean onto a problem. We lean onto some maybe our job, our task, our family, or some person, or at least to some issue, some problem. So we always living our life leaning to something, so relying on something, leaning against something, attached to something. Then only we feel like living. But when we develop our insight in this way, we can live anisthito. We don't want anything to lean on to live our life. I mean, of course, we lean on to many things, but those things are also changing. We keep falling, and we lean on something else, and again we keep falling, and we lean on something else, we again keep falling. That is what is happening in our life. But when you develop this understanding, we become someone we can stand firm. We can still treat others, take care of others, and deal with everything else, but we are not really completely leaning on to someone or something. We can stay independent, anisthito. That's the energy we develop. And then unsustained by or not clinging to anything in the world. So that's the other one, that we can live in the world, but without clinging anything to the world. We can live in the world, but not clinging to anything. And that's what we learn from the symbol of the lotus. The lotus can be in the water, but not being defiled or smeared by the water. So that kind of ability. We live in the world, but without being attached, without attaching to the world. This is how a monk remains focused on the mind and of itself. So this passage is coming again and again and again in all the places, but that passage is the key. That is the main attitude we have to maintain with regard to our body, feelings, mind, and mental objects.